Okay, let's go ahead and get started. First, I want to welcome everyone to the June CaTS webinar. This is our second webinar now during COVID time. So I hope everything goes smoothly here and my home internet holds out. I want to let everybody know before we start that this session is being recorded. So if you contribute to the conversation or ask questions afterwards, those will be included in the recording. We'll also make this available later on the CaTS YouTube channel. So if there's things you see on the screen that you have questions about later, don't worry about it. We can make that available to you probably in the next few days. So that being said, let me just make a little adjustment here. Okay, good. So today our plan is to talk about REDCap and some remote working tips and tricks. I mentioned if you have questions, please feel free to put those in the chat window, and we can get to them later. Or if you have a question about a slide, just go ahead and unmute yourself and ask right then and there. Either way, we're happy to oblige you. Joining me today is Aimee Stewart, who is our CaTS and our Pennington Biomedical Research Center REDCap administrator. She's the manager of the PBRC Clinical Data Management Group, and she's going to give you a tour of some REDCap functionality today. I'm just going to get out the way and let her talk, and I'll man the chat session. So, Aimee, if you want to go ahead and share your screen.
Sure. All right, let's see. There we go. So I'm going to kind of go back to basics today because this is my first CaTS webinar. So I just kind of want to make sure that we're all on the same page. As y'all know, Connie retired last year, and so I kind of took over the REDCap administration role, and I have Christina Zerbuin in my team that is working with us, and she helped me with the project that we're going to look at today. So just briefly, what is REDCap? It is a secure web application that you can use to manage online surveys and databases. It is geared towards supporting online and offline data capture for research studies and operations. While I do think it's used for other things, that's what it's best made for. Some of the features of REDCap is that, that draw people in is that its development is fast and flexible. You can do a lot with it, and you can do it quickly. Multi-sites can use it, so you can have different locations entering data into the same database, but they can only see the data that they enter using the differentiated user roles. So you can set up user roles for data entry clerk at site 1, and they can't see stuff that's a data entry clerk at site 2. And then you may have an investigator set up with read-only access, but can see across all sites. REDCap does have audit trail and logging. I will say that this can be cumbersome to look through, but it is available if you needed to go and track down, what was done when. It also, you can export data from REDCap. It allows you to export into Excel or SAS. Right now, we're actually using the API export to try to export data into the clinical database for some questionnaires. There's a project calendar, scheduling, different reporting things that you can do. And you can also set up surveys and such to be in different languages, which I know some people find helpful. My first tip for CaTS members, investigators, is to basically, make use of REDCap. It's a service that is provided to you. So within that service, you get access to the REDCap software, which is, hosted on a web server, as I mentioned. You get disk space for your data. We regularly back the system up and all of the data. We are applying software patches and upgrades as they come out and testing those to make sure that things aren't breaking when they're updated. And as well as we provide development assistance. So if you need help or anything, please feel free to contact us at redcap@pbrc.edu. Christina and I both monitor this account. The second thing I just kind of want to go through is REDCap terminology. When I started using REDCap last year, some of the terminology that REDCap uses is a little bit different than what I was used to. So I just kind of wanted to briefly go through some of these to make sure we're all on the same page once I get into the REDCap project. An instrument in REDCap is basically an electronic data entry form. A field on an instrument is a singular data entry item like first name or age or height. The variable name is what's going to be stored in the REDCap database and shown back when you export the data. That data is going to be flagged with that variable name. Branching logic inside of REDCap allows you to show and hide questions based off of other questions. So if you had something like a certain, you wanted to ask people that were under the age of 30 if they were still in college and what they were doing, once they selected their age, you could show or hide that question about college based off of that. Events in REDCap are synonymous with a visit identifier. So that would be like your week 0 or your week 1. So these are basically used in longitudinal study designs where you're scheduling events and collecting different data on each one of those events. REDCap does have arms, which would group those events together. So if you had a control arm and an experimental arm, you could use REDCap to say, well, the control is going to do this set of data, collect this set, and the experimental will do something different. So it does allow you to do that. A record in REDCap is the set of information for a unique participant. It is actually can be a lot of different information across all of those multiple instruments. And the record ID is what makes those records unique. So each participant, would have their own record ID in the system. As I mentioned earlier, there are user rights, user roles, and data access groups that would allow you to give different users different rights and set them up easily and repeatedly. So you could do the roles and say this is a data entry role. So that, if you needed to have 3 data entry people, they could all be added into that one role. So the roles help. And the data access group is actually how you would do multi-site trials. They're called DAGs or data access groups. The data dictionary inside of REDCap is actually an extremely useful instrument. You can download it and create other projects based off of an existing data dictionary. Basically what it is it's each field with the variable name, with the formatting that you've set up, as well as ranges or notes or anything. It contains every single piece of metadata that you have set up for those fields and instruments. I've already the logging, there is a logging mechanism. It does every modification, but again, it is a little bit cumbersome to look through that. And the last one I wanted to talk about was the difference between development and production modes in REDCap. In development mode, this is when you're designing it, testing it, really, working on each of those data forms or instruments. Once you move into production mode and you're ready to collect real data, changes to the forms become difficult in REDCap. You can no longer make a change and then test it without putting it into production. So if you have minor changes like a, correction to spelling or something like that on a form, those are simple and can be done while you're still in production mode. But if you have to make a major change to a project, Christina and I can help you with that. We have some different tricks that we could do. It may be that you want to copy that project into another project and back into development mode so that you can go ahead and actually be able to test it. But once you're in production mode, it's changes become more difficult. So I'm going to go ahead and open up REDCap and show you a few things if I can get it to. Sorry, I don't want to see my calendar. What's going on? Oh, there we go. So we're going to log into REDCap here. And if you've used the Pennington REDCap version, we are using this EDC server now. And basically this EDC server, we're slowly replacing our redcap.pbrc.edu server with this one, because this one has multi-factor authentication turned on. So it gives a little bit more security than the other one. So I'm going to open up this project. You're going to see I'm an administrator, so I'm going to have a lot more buttons and stuff to click on than you would. But so that's kind of the reason, because I'm in an administrator role. So inside of this project that we created, you'll notice that we have surveys turned on. So I'm just going to kind of this is a very simple project, but I just kind of wanted to show you some things that you could do on an instrument to customize it. We're going to go into the designer. A little trick, you can click right here, this button that says online designer, but this one over here that says designer, they take you to the same place. So we've created two forms. I'm going to go ahead into the participant information form. And you'll see how we talked about that every participant is going to be associated with record ID. When you create your first instrument in REDCap, this is automatically there by default. You can change the name of it, but I don't see the need. We can just keep it as record ID. So we added in 3 fields. And one thing I want to point out that is a REDCap best practices is to name each field on a form prefixed with that form name. So you'll see that I have put PPT for participant in front of each one of these variable names so that I know which form it was collected on. As projects get bigger and bigger, this is very helpful to statisticians or people reviewing the data to know exactly where the variables came from, because they can come out in just a huge Excel spreadsheet, and it's easier to follow if you try to keep a naming convention. We have these fields required. I'm going to open up email address and just point something out. There are a lot of different field types in REDCap that you can play with. This one's a fairly simple one, and it's just a text box. This validation over here is really great to use. You can pick different things. They have zip codes, SSN, phone numbers. I'm using the email validation. So what that's going to do is make sure that when someone types something in, that it is in the format of an email. And you'll see this is required, and it kind of shows right here, must provide the value. So this is all we're going to do on this participant information form. But once somebody enters information into here, I want it to generate an invitation to our dessert survey that I'm going to show you in a second. So what I've done is I've turned on automated invitations. And what we can do in REDCap is send someone a survey, and you can send it based off of different conditions when they're met. So I want it to look like it came from REDCap, not myself. I want it to send when that first form is completed. Now you'll see that this doesn't say PPT. This says participant information. REDCap is going to use the instrument name that you type in as their prefix. But if you continue to use that, your variable names can get very long. So our tendency is we try to abbreviate them, because otherwise the field names get extremely long and cumbersome to try to remember. So basically, when that form is marked as 2, we're going to immediately send this email. And what it's going to do is send the email and say, please go take our dessert survey. One thing you can do in these emails is customize them, and so that they know, that participant knows that this is coming to them. So what I've done is, it's called piping in the field name of just first name. This is the variable name that we put in, and it's just within brackets. So I'm going to go ahead and save this, and we'll go send an email in a second after we look at the dessert survey. We'll go enter a participant. So inside of the dessert survey, I'm going to kind of get into this customization again that you can do. As I mentioned, the piping in of variables. So again, when they get this survey, I wanted them to know that this was designed for them and only them. So again, we're going to pipe in their first name and their last name. And then to just kind of, put some formatting on our survey, we decided to color the name blue right here. Another thing that I'm doing is, this is the email address for this participant. So let's say the email address I send it to isn't the one that they would prefer, and they want to change their email for anything that I send in the future. They can update it. So I put a little field note that says update if needed. And again, I piped in that email address as a default. So when it comes up, you'll see that the email address that we enter is already in their survey. So again, we just kind of did some more color coding. We put red here, green, and purple. On this one, we're going to calculate the age based off of the date of birth that the participant puts in. So we picked field type of calculated field. Again, you can see that the HTML here, we picked purple this time. And we want to calculate it in italics, so they know you're not filling this in. You'll also notice that on the screen, a calculated field is gray versus one that they need to fill in will be white. And this is the calculation. There is information on calculations if you click this little blue link. I'm not going to go through calculations today because there are a lot of different things that you can do. The one thing that I do want to mention that I've had people ask me in the past is, could you just use the today or now? They have functions built into REDCap that are today and now, and it is suggested that you do not do that. So what I've done is I've created a dessert date. So up here you'll see, I didn't show this, but I have a date field up here that is actually a hidden field that's going to default to today. And it's going to save this field, and then this date will be calculated off of that date that is saved. If I use the today or now inside of this calculation, every time we opened or saved this, it would rerun that age calculation. So they suggest you not using that because of the ability, to change that date. I know that's kind of getting deep, but it's just kind of a little trick that we've learned along the way is to, don't use now and today in calculations. They also suggest with calculations that you, the general recommendation is to do calculations as part of analysis and only to keep raw data in your REDCap database. And the part of that is what we just talked about. The REDCap isn't necessarily designed to do calculations and try to use the software pieces that are doing this. REDCap's very good for collecting raw data and pulling it out, but and some maybe minor calculations, especially if it's something that you want the participant to see. Some other things that we did to customize this form where we enlarged this font. Again, it's just some different HTML that you can add on here. I will let you know you can use this rich text editor, but if you know HTML, HTML gives you a little bit more control over what you're doing. This rich text editor can be a little limiting. So we're asking them what their favorite dessert is, and we're going to let them type something in. Then we're asking them if they like ice cream. Which flavor of ice cream is your favorite? This question is only going to be shown if they answer yes to this. So that's that branching logic that we talked about. So this little green button opens up branching logic, and you can put in here, you know, if that dessert ice cream is yes. So in programming world, 1 is normally yes and 0 is no, but you can always go back to that other field to see how it is coded. A lot of these things, when you just go in and create a field, are defaults inside of REDCap. But in this one, you'll see that what we wanted to show is that you can actually pipe in answers to the questions above while they're taking a survey. It doesn't necessarily have to be values from another instrument. So when we run it, you'll be able to see how the information from these two fields is piped into here. And again, you know it's a piping because of these brackets right here, are showing you that it's a prior field. The other thing on this survey that I was going to show, we have 2 different matrix groups that we created. You'll see that every time it says you can add a field or add a matrix of fields. Something that that we've done is we do a ranking, and REDCap makes this super simple. If you come in and you put your different items that you want ranked, so we're doing desserts today, cake, pie, ice cream, cookies, or brownies. We want to know which one you like the most and which one you like the least, and the other ones in between. So they actually have this little checkbox that says allow only one choice to be selected per column. So that basically says when we come in to do this, it's not going to let a user do what I just did, because that's all like least. So when we actually run the survey, you'll be able to see it's going to make me pick a different answer for each one of these. But this one, this matrix, actually, we want to know each this question doesn't make sense to me, but how often do you eat each meal? So I would think you would eat breakfast only less than once a day, but or just once a day, or I guess you could eat breakfast twice a day. But basically, this one's going to allow you to pick one of these answers as many times as you want, because we didn't check this ranking value. And then I just wanted to go ahead and make sure the difference between a checkbox and a radio button. Radio buttons only allow you to pick one, answer per field. A checkbox is going to let you check off multiple answers. So I put this on here just so that you could see. REDCap also has a neat little field where you can do a signature, and I'll show that when we do the survey. So those are just some little tips on how you can customize and come in here and use HTML and piping to customize your survey. So let's go in and look at our record status dashboard. So one thing I have been asked a good bit is, can we make this a little bit, customize this dashboard to show the names of people? And this is actually something fairly easy to do. If you go back into the designer, into the project setup, and you click on additional customizations, The very top thing is set a custom record label. And again, it's that same piping of fields, and you can put whatever you want into here. And let's just say I've decided actually I want the first name to show up first. So we'll switch it around, and you can save, and then you'll see that now it has the names right here. But that's something pretty quick so that you can, to help you display values here. So we're going to create a new record, and we'll go ahead and do the participant information, and you'll see that it's going to email me. So I'm going to do Minnie Mouse, and we're going to mark this as completed. And remember when I did the survey automation, I said when it gets marked as completed, which completed is 2, send me the email. So we'll go ahead and do that. Give it a second. Let me pull up my Outlook. And you'll see that it sent Minnie an email. And again, it piped in her name and put in, you may now open our dessert survey. So this is basically what I had typed into that automated survey, and it is coming from REDCap at pbrc.edu. So if we open the dessert survey, you're going to see it says Minnie, again, Minnie Mouse. So the piping, the bracket stuff is gone, but now it has been customized for Minnie. And so she knows that this is her who should take this survey. We can put in a zip code for Minnie, and then Minnie was actually born November 18th of 1928. And so today, Minnie is 91 years old. So you can see basically it's calculating that date of birth. But if you notice that date that we had up here, I had hidden it. So that's kind of a behind the scenes date that's just going to save with this record. We're going to write in Minnie's favorite dessert is pie, and she likes ice cream. Now, you know, if I said no, those questions are hidden, but if I say I like ice cream, then it does go ahead and show these. Now, we had talked about the piping of actually within a survey. So you see right here, it says pie. So if I actually change this up here to pudding, it will actually change right here as well. When I click vanilla ice cream, it's piping in vanilla or chocolate as well. So then you can go ahead and pick the ice cream. To rank the desserts, like I said, when we previewed it, it let me click those buttons, but now it will not. I actually have to select a different value for each one of these items. It always has these little reset buttons in case that was wrong, and you can go back and select the other value. For these though, because I didn't select the ranking, I'm able to pick the same value for each one of them. And again, we can check some things off. And then to add a signature, I'm not very good with signing my name with a mouse, but so I've seen people do stars or X's, or they have some kind of symbol that they can write. But you're able to save signatures inside of REDCap, and it puts them into image files. Then that is submitted, and Minnie is done. So when you come back over here, back to that record status dashboard, you'll see Minnie and that her information is complete. All right, so I'll go to questions now. That was pretty much all I had. Let's see.
Aimee, we got a few good questions.
Okay.
The first one was, is it possible to merge 2 separate forms in development mode?
Yes. I would do that kind of with what I was talking about, the data entry. The data dictionary form. You could actually export that data entry form and change the form names on the, make the form names the same for those 2, and then re-import that data dictionary. and it would merge them into one form. I'd be happy to show that to you if you need me to.
Let's see if we get a response in the chat. That is a super powerful
yeah,
technique.
So I can let me see if I can show. So
great. Yes. Can you do an example?
Let's see. Let me do. Okay. Let me add. Sure. Let's see what we got. I will do a quick instrument right here, and we're gonna call it. I'll call it merge, and I will do a quick. Just let's do. I'll just do favorite vegetable. So if I can't spell. All right. And we'll call it, okay, we'll save this. And so there's this one field over here but now we've decided that's the only thing that we want there. And we want to just merge those two screens. So what you would do is under project setup, or I guess I could have gone to data dictionary right there, is click on the data dictionary, and you can download your current data dictionary. And you'll see it right here. So these are all the different, the forms that I have. So you'll see we have participant information, we have dessert survey, and we have the merge form. Because I don't want this by itself, I've decided that I'm going to go ahead and put it on the dessert survey. I'm going to just change the form name to dessert survey. And then let's say, I really don't want it to be below the signature. I want it to be above it. So I'm just going to cut and paste it, put it right there. And I really want it to stick with my form name convention. So I'm going to go ahead and change the name of that variable as well so that it matches my other dessert variable names. You click save. And then you'll come and choose that file, open it, and click upload. So it's saying that my document was uploaded successfully and it waits my confirmation. So I'm going to go ahead and say commit the changes. And when I go back into the designer, you're going to see that that merge form is now gone. And when I click in dessert survey and go to the bottom, my favorite vegetable has now been moved over here.
Okay, Amy, so everyone's muted, but I think they just broke into a round of applause on that one.
All right, great.
That was great. Fantastic. Okay, and then another question was, can you use branch logic for individual items on matrix fields? For example, if you're doing a Likert scale where some, but not all of the items require a please describe after it. I don't know if that's possible in a matrix. Does that make sense to have conditional fields?
You can't do it inside of the matrix. For instance, if you wanted the field to show up right below, but what I do think you could do is add a field. What was to like a please describe? Okay, so we could do a please describe. Say we want more information on their cake. Description. So I believe what I can do is then write in, so maybe you only want the cake if it's greater than 3. You only want to know that cake, what type of cake they like if they pick that it's, one of their, more favorite types of dessert. So it has to be 4 or 5 in order for that to show up. So let me write, please describe type of cake. So let's go see. Again, I'm going to have to go back into survey mode because when you in this preview, you can't get branching logic to work. So let's come over here real quick, and I will just let me quickly add a fourth one. I won't wait for it to email me this time. I can open it from within here. So I'll just go ahead and click on this and say open as a survey so that we can look at it real quick. So I'm thinking if I do 4, you'll see that it popped up and said, please describe the type of cake. But if I have 3, it's not going to ask me. So you can do it, but it won't put it right below cake. Does that make sense?
I see. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I think that'll work. Let's see if we get another comment in the chat. That seems like it addressed it though.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
No problem.
Thank you. Great.
Sure.
Well, Aimee, this has been great. Are you done with your with the
yes,
content?
That was all I had. Yes.
Well, thank you so much, because that's been really valuable. I learned some things for sure that I didn't expect to. Some basic stuff I guess I just glossed over. That was really great.
Great.
Thank you. So I'm going to hop into some remote working tips and tricks, but before I do, were there any other REDCap questions for Aimee in the chat or over audio? Does anyone have any questions for her? All right. Well, if you think of any, just please go ahead and post them in the chat, and we'll make sure to get back to you. And Aimee, there was a request to share our slides. And once I get done presenting mine, I can throw them in the chat. If you want to put yours in the chat too, that would be good.
Sure.
Okay. Thanks. Okay, so let me go ahead and share my slides. Let's see. Okay. Some of this, I see that we have some folks from Pennington on, and some of these tips and tricks I'm going to go over, I've covered in some lunch and learns at the center, but I tried to put in some new content for you as well. So if you have questions during it, please ask away or post in the chat, and I'm happy to answer you. And I'll try to be quick so we can cover these quickly. Just one thing I wanted to point out that I think is more important than ever. You may not follow these guidelines at your office setup currently, but it's really hard to apply these when you're working in a home office like we've been doing. And I think they're worth noting just because they can lead to other problems, especially when you're logging more hours perhaps than you normally would in your office, or hours around the clock. So some ideas to keep in mind. This is from OSHA's website. You want to keep your eye level at the top of your monitor or just below the top of your monitor. That'll help prevent neck strain. Keeping good posture in your chair with your head and neck balanced in line with your torso, and also supporting your lower back. I know I stuff a pillow into the bottom of my chair every day. I think those are useful tips. Supporting your forearms, and that can be done with a mouse pad for your mouse, and also a keyboard brace right there as shown in the photo. And have an adequate room for your keyboard and mouse. That'll also assist, because you, like I said, you may be spending more hours than you might even realize working these days. And then last but not least, keeping your feet flat on the floor will ease tension in your back. So it's not a bad thing to just give yourself a once over a few times a day to make sure that you're following these. It's easy to get out of whack, especially if you're working in a lazy boy or on a couch or something like that. So there, yeah, start with your workspace first. I think that's good advice. Now just a few pointers for things that you might not have at your home that you would have in your office, but you may not realize. If you don't have a printer at home, one thing that's included in Windows 10 and Office 365 is the ability to print anything within the Office suite to PDF. So that's Excel spreadsheets, Access database forms, Word documents, PowerPoint slides. All these things can be printed to PDF for printing later if that's a need that you have. So it's a good thing to keep in mind. The other side of printing would be scanning it. maybe you have a large scanner in your office, but no scanner at home. I found that these two products have served me well. They both have the same approach. They both install on your smartphone and then utilize multiple photographs to create a composite super image. There's Microsoft Office Lens, which integrates well with the Microsoft suite of tools. And then if you're more of a Google user, there's PhotoScan by Google Photos. So they both work very similarly, and they both are able to produce outputs you can take elsewhere in the form of JPEGs or any graphic format, I believe. But they'll make your smartphone into a scanner. So I found these to be very useful pretty often during the day. I use these. Oftentimes, we have folks who contact us at our help desk saying that they don't have a webcam or they don't have a microphone on their workstation at home, or perhaps they're having an issue with either a Zoom meeting or a Teams meeting. And the simplest advice, the best advice that we have for that is to go ahead and use your smartphone and the clients for Teams or Zoom on your smartphone. And the reason for that is that your phone only has a single microphone and it only has a single camera. Well, two cameras, I imagine. But it knows about its hardware. That's the point I'm trying to make. Whereas your home PC might have multiple speakers or multiple microphones connected to it, which can create problems that we've seen with different clients. So always a standard go-to in these situations is to use the smartphone client for these meetings. It will work. I'd say 99 times out of 100, and if it doesn't, you can call the help desk. So that's just another point I wanted to make. I'm going to talk about some Office products. I know that these aren't necessarily offered to all the CATS investigators, but I imagine most institutions have Microsoft Office licensing and some of the other tools we're going to talk about, and I'll offer alternatives if they don't. But OneDrive is one that we mention a lot, and the reason for that is simple. OneDrive it's a Microsoft product that uses cloud-based storage. The syncing between your desktop computer and your laptop computer is customizable. You get to choose what's synced and what isn't synced, and that's if you see this status column in Windows Explorer here, you can see the status. These are either the check mark says that these are available on this machine. The cloud means they're in the cloud and they need to be synced. And then the small icon says that these are actually being shared out with other collaborators. This is useful. Let's say you have a desktop that has a very large hard drive, and then you have a notebook that has a very small hard drive. You can change which files are synced in those various locations, and that's highly useful, especially since I know I'm switching between a lot of machines these days. So this is a useful feature. Also, OneDrive has its own version history built into it. So versions are available within the OneDrive web client. You can actually see where changes were saved. So OneDrive sort of eliminates the need to have to seek a backup off of a network drive. It puts it in your hands, which is very handy, and it's integrated with all Office 365 products. So Office 365 products want to look at OneDrive first. It's a useful feature. So our guidance here at the Pennington Center is to work in OneDrive. It's a good, robust solution. Another part of the Office suite that we found incredibly useful in these times is OneNote. I know personally, I can't begin my day without a OneNote, without consulting my OneNote, and that's because I keep tasks in place in sort of a journal format within a OneNote notebook. But that's what OneNote is. It's a digital notebook that allows you to organize your thoughts and tasks. You're able to put images. You can actually do audio recordings within a OneNote notebook. You can share a notebook with a team. And you can divide notebooks with pages within those notebooks. So there's a lot of flexibility, a lot of application uses for OneNote. Some people, I know I started as an Evernote user and I've switched to a OneNote user. Both are similar and have strengths and weaknesses, but OneNote, like OneDrive, integrates with the Office 365 suite of tools. So I found it highly useful and I recommend it. It replicates, by using OneDrive, it replicates its data between your laptop and workstations that have access to that notebook, and smartphones or tablets that have access to that notebook. So you have a single data repository available to all those different clients. So again, that just makes OneNote all that more valuable. That's okay. So how do you get things into OneNote? That's this is a common question that we get. Depending upon your browser, this example that I've shown here on the left is within Firefox. So depending upon your browser, OneNote has plugins or extensions or add-ins, whichever terminology maps to your browser. This is Firefox's OneNote Clipper. This very easily, if you click this button and select this page, which it gives you upon installation to show you how it works, it actually clips the page into a OneNote note that's on the right-hand side of my slide, and it tells you where that note came from, so you can get back to it, which is very handy. That's a real plus on the Clipper, is that it can get you back to where that came from originally. So I highly recommend the Web Clipper. If you need to clip specific items off of applications or other types of images or things like that, I'd recommend my old standby is the Windows snipping tool. I don't know how many of you all use the Windows snipping tool, but lately they've been telling us that in a future update, the snipping tool will be moving to a new home. Try the new features in the new snip and sketch tool. So this is available at the same time as the snipping tool now as we transition. And you can get to it very easily by hitting the Windows key, Shift, and S. So those three keys together will bring up snip and sketch. It works a lot like the snipping tool. And again, this will allow you to take an image of a small application. Let's say if you're running something that's not in a web browser that wouldn't utilize that snipping, wouldn't utilize the Clipper. Snipping tool allows you to do those things. So this is very useful. I probably used it 50 times to create this presentation. Highly recommend it. And again, that's very Windows centric, but if you were on a Mac, you can get to the same type of functionality by saying Command-Shift-3 to screenshot your entire screen, or Command-Shift-4 to do a partial sort of small clipping. So again, those are the Mac equivalents. Another tool that we're in right now, but I'd say we're living in this thing 8 hours or more a day, is Microsoft Teams. And if you're not using Teams, the way I've described it to other folks is that it's the hub between these Office 365 suites. Before Teams, these are all standalone islands: OneNote, Outlook, Skype for Business. These are all different entry points that you had to go into through the Office 365 website. Within Teams, it's a collaboration hub, allows you to meet there, work there, collaborate there, spin out into these different data sources and work with them. And so we find it very useful. Like I said, my team, we're working in this all day, every day. Teams is a very large product, and I won't go into all the different features of it, but just to say, just like the other tools in the Office 365 suite, it's cloud-based, available on all those different platforms, just like OneNote is. So you have Teams on your phone, you can have Teams on your PC, Teams on your laptop, Teams on a tablet. Teams are a divider. You can set permissions for subsets of these applications for teams of individuals that you work with, collaborate with. Then within a team, you can set channels. So these channels allow you to diversify where conversations are leading to within a team. Chat is persistent across teams, so you can add someone to a team chat, and they can or cannot be allowed to see the previous conversation in the thread. So that's very useful if you want someone to get up to speed with a conversation that's been going on for a few weeks. You can have that functionality within Teams. And I mentioned these other Office tools as well, OneNote, SharePoint, and Teams meetings. So we're in a Teams meeting right now. How do you create a Teams meeting? There are very easy ways to create Teams meetings. The simplest, if you're someone who works a lot in Outlook, is to just go create a new item within Outlook. And at the bottom of that new item selection is a choice to create a new Teams meeting. That's a very simple way to do it from Outlook, like you would set up a regular meeting within Outlook. You can do it there, or you can go into Teams itself, click on the calendar panel on the left-hand side, and then schedule a new meeting on the right-hand side. You can select between a meeting or a live event. And I'll go over the difference between those two choices. Some folks have been working in one or the other all this time. There is a difference between those two types of events, which we'll cover. A new service that we have here at the center for us, and I know that other campuses within the CATS have access to it as well, is Zoom. And we feel like Zoom has uses that Teams doesn't do as well, or doesn't handle quite as well. Both Zoom and Teams are covered by a business associate agreement, so their use is HIPAA compliant. They both provide video conferencing. The view that you see within Zoom is what we call the Brady Bunch view. That is showing you lots of different faces of everyone on the call at one time. I believe that scales out to, I believe it's 99 or even more faces on a call at one time. Teams currently has a 9-panel view, but just announced this week, Microsoft is about to come out with a 7x7 or 49 panel view. So you have 49 faces on screen in the next month or so within Teams. We've mentioned these other features about persistent chat, and both products have a waiting room functionality, so you can have folks enter a waiting room before your meeting and then screen their access into the meeting. I feel like right now at this point, Zoom does the waiting room functionality better than Teams, but and I think I have an animation here. Yes, new features come out weekly with these products, and just this morning we learned about that larger 7x7 format within Teams, as well as some new functionality in the waiting room for Teams, which will make it competitive with the Zoom waiting room. So again, these products, they have their own strengths and weaknesses. I'm sure you're probably working within both, but those are some of the things we've seen that differentiate the two. You probably heard of Zoom bombing, and hopefully you haven't witnessed it on the call, but this happens when a stranger joins a web meeting to wreak havoc through some sort of inappropriate sharing, either video or audio bombing within the meeting. So how do you prevent Zoom bombing? In a public meeting like this, there aren't a lot of things you can do on the front end because you're sharing the link to your meeting publicly. If you're able to control your audience, just direct your invitations to your audience and don't share those things publicly. That's the number one way to prevent Zoom bombing. The waiting room facility that we've talked about is useful in that you can pre-screen who comes in if you don't recognize someone. Using that waiting room is a good way to limit who can come in and who can share. Also, restricting screen sharing, not allowing guests to share their screen is another way to prevent video Zoom bombing. With Zoom itself, well, actually with both products, you can only allow authenticated users, so there's no guest functionality allowed. And again, that won't work in a public meeting like this, but in a meeting where you could restrict access, that's highly recommended. And then muting attendees upon entry gives you that one step to see if someone maybe necessarily isn't who they say they are. They have to unmute to wreak havoc, as we say, and then you can dismiss them from the meeting. And that's important to mention as well. As a meeting organizer, you have the ability to mute people in the meeting, kick them out of the meeting, and that's really I'd say your last defense against the Zoom bombing episode. So anyway, just wanted to bring you up to speed on that, those Zoom bombing recommendations in case you hadn't seen those all in one place. So which products to use? Here at the Pennington Center, we have licensing for both Microsoft Teams and Zoom, and I imagine that you may have similar licensing at your institutions. The difference between those two Microsoft Teams types of events, either Teams meetings or Teams live events, really it's about the capacity of attendees. So if you're only trying to meet with a group that is less than 250 users at one time, Teams meetings are fine. Once those Teams meetings grow, though, to a large size that you may not be able to predict, a live event allows you to scale that up to 10,000 attendees, and I believe this is about to be extended by Microsoft. So that's really useful. The price you pay in a Teams live event is that you're not live with all the participants in the conversation. You have to define who will present, and then there's a 30 to 40 second delay from presentation time to the large audience that allows Microsoft to use Azure Cloud services to spool this out to however many people want to attend. So it's a very powerful feature of Teams live event, and probably something you don't need for a meeting this small. And so that's why I would recommend the use of Teams meetings over Teams live events. If you're having something that's, let's say, institution-wide, or some larger public group that you're not sure, maybe it's going to be 500 to 1,000 people who might attend, Teams live event is a really good solution path for that. But realize that you can't interact in real time via audio or video with your audience. You can, however, have a question and answer window with your audience. So that's subject to that 30 to 40 second delay, but it is something useful with Teams live event. And Zoom is also very similar in scale to Teams meetings. Now, keep in mind, these numbers that I'm mentioning are effective now, and they are subject to change. All of these corporations are competing with each other to implement similar feature sets and sort of outdo one another in terms of scale. But for now, we cap Teams meetings at about 250, Zoom meetings around 300, and then the Teams live event can spool up to 10,000, like I mentioned. So I'm trying to keep us on schedule. I think that might be, yeah, good. That's actually all the content that I wanted to present to you. These are just some recommendations about where I thought Teams and Teams live events were best used. We talked about large meetings here, daily meetings, and then Zoom meetings having an edge in things like focus group meetings or job interviews where you want to have better waiting room control. I think that's where Zoom wins this week, is in that waiting room control. And that might change in the next few weeks as Microsoft unveils their changes, but for now, that's where the edge is with us. So sorry to rush through that. I know that was a lot of material, but if anyone has any questions, please, you can go ahead and unmute yourself. I see Aimee's added her PowerPoint presentation as well as the data dictionary that she worked on into the chat. So if you would like to download those, and I'll add these slides into the chat as well in just a minute. But I did have a question for you. Has anyone used some tools over the last few weeks and months that they find they can't live without now? Anything you'd like to pass on? I'd love to hear about and explore new tools. Just curious. Okay, well, if anyone has any, this chat will be open. You can always rejoin and share those. I'm always interested. Also, I'm always interested in these as potential future topics for the CaTS webinars. So happy to review those. If you'd like to pass them on, you can certainly email me. My email address is there on the slide. at pbrc.edu, as well as info@lacats.org. And that is really all the material we wanted to cover today. I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up. But if you would have a moment today, we would love to have your feedback. Thanks, Brian. Thanks. We'd love to have your feedback. We have a REDCap survey at lacats.org/REDCap feedback. If you would be so kind as to fill out that survey, we'd love to have your feedback. Let's see, I did get a message in the chat saying, is anyone else getting an error message when trying to download the slides? Oh, okay, so we're having a problem trying to download the slides. Okay, well, I tell you what, we will get this video out on our YouTube channel. If you can YouTube the CATS Center, I'm sorry, if you can Google the CATS Center on YouTube, you'll find our channel there where we have other webinars that we've done. And I will get this this video out on the YouTube channel, and then we'll tweet about the link so you can see where to find it. If you don't follow the CATS Center on Twitter, I'd ask you to do that, because that helps us out as well. We'll get these files to a location where you can reach them and link them in the description to the video. So that's easy enough to do, and we can do that today or tomorrow. Well, actually, probably tomorrow. So anyway, that is all the content that we had for today. I want to thank you for joining us, and please, either one of those email addresses, if you have some content that you'd like to see us present, we love feedback, so please do. And again, thank you to Aimee and Christina as well for help on the REDCap presentation today. It was really great, and I really enjoyed it. So thanks, everyone, and we will talk to you again soon. Bye.
Thanks, David. Bye.
Thanks, everyone.